good to see you guys. If the rest of us that are here, go ahead and flip on over to Psalm 52. Psalm chapter 52. You have Bibles? What would it be this morning? All right, Psalm 52. Psalm 52 goes like this. It's to the choir master. It's a maskil. So once again, we looked at a maskil before. It's a maskil of David. So a song with information. When Doeg, the Edomite, came and told Saul, David has come to the house of Ahimelech. And it reads like this, verses 1 through 9. Why do you boast of evil, O mighty man? The steadfast love of God endures all the day. Your tongue plots destruction like a sharp razor, you worker of deceit. You love evil more than good, and lying more than speaking what is right. You love all words that devour, O deceitful tongue, but God will break you down forever. He will snatch and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. The righteous shall see and fear. They shall laugh at him, saying, see the man who would not make God his refuge, but trusted in the abundance of his riches and sought refuge in his own destruction. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. I will thank you forever because you have done it. I will wait for your name, for it is good in the presence of the godly. Amen. God in heaven, would you meet with us this morning and just open up our hearts and our eyes to the truth? Or would you allow the interference going through our hearts and our minds right now to dissipate? And when we focus, we humble ourselves and worship you even now as we look to you, Lord. I ask you to be with my mind and with each word that I say, Lord, that you would go before me in that way. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. You don't have to look far or hard or long to see, I think, the type of person that David is describing here at the very part of the first part of this passage, right? It doesn't take long for us, even in the society that we live in the world that we live in, to look around and say, this is, yeah, I see this too. Why do you boast of evil, O mighty man? And it's kind of like a strange irony. You think you're a mighty man, but you're boasting of evil. And in light of eternity, the evil men, the ones, the godless men, the unbelievers, they are not going to be the mighty ones. They are not going to be the ones seated at the right hand of the Father next to Jesus for eternity praising his name. The evil ones are actually the ones that are going to perish. So it's kind of this irony. Why are you boasting of evil, O mighty man? And David's just play on words. You're boasting of evil, thinking that you're being strong. Thinking that this is what macho men do is say, yeah, look what I just did. Look how I just injured this, or look how I just humiliated this. Isn't this exactly what gossip is, I suppose? Where you think you're being strong by tearing someone else down, and it makes you look better. And it's just this sinful irony that it's actually your weakness coming through. It's actually the power of the Lord access. It's not, you're not living in that in your life. And so there's this irony there. But David brings us back after he says, why are you boasting of evil? He says, the steadfast love of God endures all the day. Evil comes and goes throughout our lives and through the lives of others. Evil is something that it shows up throughout history in different ways and different forms. And it comes and it goes, and a certain type of evil that affected, let's just say, like the earlier part of this century, back when we had World War I, World War II, and we had a certain kind of evil that was just absolutely dominating the globe. That's not happening now, but we have a different type of evil with us now, right? We have a different type of evil where we're seeing millions upon millions of children being mutilated before they're ever birthed, kind of stuff. And we see evil throughout history show up in different ways. But you know what? The love of God is steadfast. It endures all the day. The love of God is it's that fire hydrant of affection and compassion and truth that never ever weakens, that never decreases. Just the powerful, steadfast love of God. David goes on and says, your tongue plots destruction. So he's talking here. He's talking, this is language pointing at someone, right? Your tongue plots destruction like a sharp razor, you worker of deceit. You love evil. So who's he talking to then? Who's David talking about in Psalm 52? All right, well, this is where we're going to have to flip back and catch some backstory, all right? So flip back to 1 Samuel chapter 21, all right? Flip back to 1 Samuel 21. And we will get the backstory of this psalm. Psalm 52 was written right around this time period, all right? So you guys know 1 Samuel 20. It's the story of David and Jonathan, where Jonathan says, okay, I'm going to have I'm going to shoot arrows right into the field. And he kind of gives direction for David. If I do this, then that means you're welcome at my father's table. If I don't do that, then you're not welcome. Don't show up. And so we find out from 1 Samuel 20 that David shouldn't show up, right? This is not a good time. Saul is mad at him. Saul wants him dead. So that brings us to verse 21. And in a sense, David is in hiding, in the sense that he's trying to stay alive. And we get to chapter 21 of 1 Samuel. David came to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. All right? So Ahimelech the priest, he meets David, and David trembling says to him, or he says to David, why are you alone, and no one with you? And David says to Ahimelech, the king has charged me with a matter, and he said to me, let no one know anything of the matter about which I send you, and with which I have charged you. I've made an appointment with the young men for such and such a place. Now then, what you have on hand? So David's saying, I'm going to be here in a flash, I'm going to be gone, but hey, check it out. What do you have on hand? I'm starving. Give me 5 loaves of bread, or whatever is here. The priest answered David, I have no common bread on hand, but there's the holy bread. You guys remember this story? Where Ahimelech gives David the holy bread? And this was okay, as the passage tells us. He goes, if the young men have kept themselves from women, and David answers the priest, truly women have been kept from us, as always, when I go on an expedition. The vessels of the young men are holy, even when it's an ordinary journey. How much more today will their vessels be holy? So the priest gave him the holy bread, for there was no bread there but the bread of the presence, which is removed from before the Lord to be replaced by hot bread on the day it's taken away. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord. His name was Doeg the Edomite. And this is where it starts to get interesting. The chief of Saul's herdsmen. So this guy Doeg sees David talking to Ahimelech. Sees Ahimelech give David the holy bread, which was a no-no, right? You don't eat the holy bread. That's reserved for that time of year where the Lord would come down and meet there in the tabernacle, right? And that one time a year, and this was supposed to be for him. So we don't do that. But Doeg sees this going on. And he's going to report back to Saul. And there's going to be this tension created there, and from that, David pens Psalm 52. All right. So I believe that David is directing his anger. He's directing his communication towards Doeg and what he represents. All right. So Doeg, the chief of Saul's herdsmen, sees David. David says to Ahimelech, David doesn't know this. Have you not a spear or a sword on hand? I brought neither the sword nor my weapons with me because the king's business required haste. So the priest said, the sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom you struck down in the valley of Elah, behold, it's here wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. And if you'll take that, take it, for there's none but that here. And David says, there's none like that. Give it to me. And David rose and fled that day from Saul. He went to Achish, the king of Gath. And the servants of Achish said to him, is not this David the king of the land? Did they not sing to one another of him in dances? Saul has struck down his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And David took these words to heart and was much afraid of Achish the king of Gath. This is just where it gets funny. And David, he changed his behavior. All right, so he goes and he visits this other king, thinking that he's going to be accepted, and that maybe they'll provide shelter. And that king Achish is just kind of like, what are you doing here? Aren't you king of the land? We've heard songs about you. You're a legend where Saul has thousands and David has 10,000s. What's going on here? And David was afraid of him. This is just goofy. So he changed his behavior and he pretends to be insane in their hands. And he made marks on the doors of the gate and let his spittle run down his beard. So essentially, David's a really good actor. And he's trying to convince these guys that he's actually crazy. he's deranged, he's got some mental issues, and okay, well, we don't need to worry about him because, he's psycho. Look at the dude, he's got stuff coming down his beard. And Achish said to his servants, behold, you see the man is mad. Why have you brought him to me? Do I lack madmen that you have brought this fellow to behave as a madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? That cracks me up that he goes, do I lack madmen? It's almost like, great, another one of these guys? You don't think I have half a kingdom full of people like this guy? Just get him out of my sight. I don't need another one in my house. So David departs, and he goes to the cave of Adullam. And his family meets him there, and they come to him, and they gather with him, and about 400 men. And then he kind of rallies his troops to go to war. But it could have possibly been the cave of Adullam where he actually writes Psalm 52. And when he points this language towards someone, he says, your tongue plots destruction like a sharp razor. Maybe he has Doeg in mind, who goes and rats on him to Saul, or I think, though, he's using that personal pronoun to point out not just a Doeg, but everyone who's opposing him, who's against him, all the evil people that are just want to kill David. And he's watching them from caves or in hiding, and as he skirts about the land, he's watching this and he's seeing evil. And he's seeing these kinds of people plotting destruction. They're trying to tear things down, metaphorically or even physically. They're trying to cause pain like a sharp razor. I mean, I just cut myself with a razor the other day. My fingers at work, and I was just playing with it and being dumb, and just, it didn't take anything. Just cut my finger like that. Have you guys ever had something just ridiculously simple like that, where in that split second you're like, holy cow, yeah, like, this is really powerful. This little tiny thing has actually got some force behind it. So just like a sharp razor, they're plotting destruction. You worker of deceit, you love evil more than good. Man, doesn't that describe our neighbors or our city or where we live or the people around us, maybe even our coworkers? You love evil more than good. You lie more than you speak truth. I love that in the Psalms, David he's going to bring us back to the right conclusion. You guys remember a couple weeks ago when we talked about the conclusion that David and Asaph had when they look around at the world and they see chaos, and they see in that chaos, though, the unrighteous, the dirty, the ungodly prospering. And his conclusion, though, is always that it's, you know what, I walk before God. I walk before a holy God. I've got to stop peering around and comparing my life and my successes and failures with the successes and failures of others. And I've got to take that introspective glance and see, where's my heart? And David's going to do that again today, and I absolutely love that about the Psalms here. And I don't know about you guys, but I am just learning so much from the book of Psalms. And like I've said this before, but if you don't know how to put emotion, words to your emotion, run to the Psalms and dig in. Get a little deeper in the Psalms, and you will find, and it won't take long, that you are not alone. Remember when we were reading through Psalm the other day, and David wants to run, right? The hard times come, and he just wants to get out of there. Man, that's just real. That's a real dude. That's a real person. That's being human. We want to flee from our negative circumstances and put some words to your emotion. And this is what David is so good at doing. And he's going to do it here in just a second. He says, you love evil more than good, lying more than speaking what is right. Essentially, your moral compass, the foundation of who you are morally, is set on the wrong things. And maybe even there's a confusion in your mind where you actually think that evil is good, and that you actually think that lying is truthful. He says, you love all words that devour, O deceitful tongue. He's still pointing this is pretty harsh language, to be honest. He's not really holding back anything. He's just coming short of saying, I wish you would die. All right, I wish you would actually be destroyed. You would burn. I wish you would just leave, disappear. He's coming just short of that. But then he switches gears in verse 5 and he says, but God will break you down forever. Okay, so we probably didn't see this coming. I think as a human, and in our human tendencies, when we see evil, and when we see lying, and we see this stuff abounding, and we see people boasting of evil, we want to take it on ourselves. And where verse 5, instead of reading, "But God will break you," we internalize that and say, no, I will break you. I will take this into my control, into my circumstances, and I will be the one that brings justice to this situation. Now, do we have to, that doesn't mean we sit on the sidelines when you see evil. This doesn't mean you aren't engaged when you see the system of the devil in operation. It doesn't mean that you just disengage from that. But what it does mean is that you entrust ultimate judgment to God. All right. But God will break you down forever. And there's a certain holy smugness that David has when he says this, right? But God will break you down forever. I see what you're doing. I see the evil that you're all about. But you know what? God will break you down forever. And the way that he breaks you down, and the way that he has this incredible way of pulling your life apart, and pulling the cards out of that little, false construction and watching it crumble, the way that God will do that is just so much more glorifying. That sounds funky in this circumstance. It brings so much more glory to God when he does it. It is so much more impactful when he does it. And so I am going to let God do that. There will be a day where you will be snatched and torn from your tent. Talking about your comfort zone. Here you are. We've read about it before in Psalms where people were plotting destruction and evil in their beds, their tents, their comfort zone. You know what? He will snatch and tear you from your tent, your comfort zone. That's the kind of God where he views his righteousness, he views good as representative of himself, and he cannot live without doing something about it. It sounds kind of like the gospel, right? It sounds a little bit like the truth of Jesus Christ in the gospel, where we have a holy God who cannot look on sin. He cannot turn a blind eye to the sins of his people. So he has to do something about it. And here we see a glimpse of the gospel, even in Psalm 52, where God's justice will reign. God's justice will win the day. He will uproot you from the land of the living. All right, so now we see another transition going into verse 6. You guys see that at the end of verse 3, it says Selah. At the end of verse 5, he says Selah again. So we're resting musically here. Now verse 6, the righteous shall see and fear, and they shall laugh at him, saying, see the man who would not make God his refuge, but trusted in the abundance of his riches and sought refuge in his own destruction. So now he turns it. He's not talking to Doeg and the ungodly here. He's talking about the righteous now. The ones that have made God their refuge. He says, they'll see this and fear. They'll see and fear, which is a little interesting placement going on here. And then he says they're going to laugh at him. So what is going on? All right, the righteous will see and fear, and they will laugh at you. So obviously seeing makes complete sense. You know, we already talked about this. It doesn't take long to look out and see wickedness. Sometimes even in our own homes, we can see this so clearly, all right? So we observe, we have a perspective, we take a glance at wickedness, we see it, but they shall see and fear. And this is what David's drawing out as a differentiation between the wicked and the righteous. The wicked sees evil and they love it. They embrace it. It's like a sharp razor. It's so easy for them. Love wickedness, but the righteous, though, their conclusion is entirely different. It is not to embrace it. They fear. They have a reverence. They understand wickedness. They understand a holy God. This is where we should be. This should be our perspective of evil, of sin, of iniquity, of wickedness. We should see that and we should fear. Fear for a number of different reasons. Fear because of the danger that it has for others, how it destroys lives. The danger, though, for how it destroys me. The danger that I've got to stay away from that. I'm afraid of that. I have fear. I have a very good, healthy fear of that wickedness because I see what it's done to others, but I've seen what it's done to me. You've got to distance yourselves in that holy, that healthy reverence of wickedness. We all know. We all know that we are so easily entangled in it. We all know that that sin is often just like that sharp razor to ourselves. Just like me cutting myself. Self-inflicted. We've got to be very careful. So we've got to draw up parameters and boundaries. Fear wickedness because it is a powerful force. But then we shall laugh at him, saying. Then we shall laugh at him. That's kind of interesting there. And I don't think that what's in mind here is in the sense that we were mocking. Because we know that for a Christian to be someone who mocks others isn't part of his DNA. So I don't think this kind of laughter is mocking. And honestly, I'm not exactly sure what kind of laughter he's talking about here. But there's this freeing sense in which the righteous can step back and see in that holy fear, they can step back and say, there's a little bit of a lighthearted nature to it, I suppose. There's a little bit of a, not that it's not dangerous and not that it's not still playing with fire, but I think it's this idea of we understand what's going on. Where just like he said earlier in verse 1, you who boast of evil, you mighty man, the Christian, the righteous can look at that and realize that that's not actually might. That's not actually what's going on, and there's this little bit of a chuckle like, man, you just don't get it. You don't get it. So they laugh at him, saying, see, look at the man who would not make God his refuge, verse 7. Look at the man who would not make God his refuge. Okay, so David literally just said, God, he just entrusted his pain to God. He just gave that to him and said, God will break you down. Okay, one thing that shows us that David means this. Second thing, he's probably in a cave, right? He's probably writing this in a cave, literally taking refuge himself. And he says, look at the man who won't make God his refuge. He's currently living it. He's currently hiding himself in God. He's currently trusting the Lord that he's going to provide health, that he's going to keep his heart beating. He's going to keep him alive. So David means it. And he kind of just laughs at here he is in some cave, or he just came from Ahimelech, and he's in hiding, and he laughs at the people that are trusting in their riches, but trusted in the abundance of his riches, and sought refuge in your own destruction. He kind of chuckles at that. He says, guys, you're living in this false reality. You have constructed for yourself this idea of security and this structure, this construction that's just not grounded or founded in what it should be. You like riches? You are entrusting your life to your riches, to your wealth, and you're seeking refuge. You're finding security in your own destruction. So the righteous look at that man, and there's a little bit of, not a humor, but an understanding that they've got it all wrong from the ground up. They trust in the abundance of his riches. God, the wrong thing is giving you security. It should be, but God. It should be under the shadow of his wings, right? So question, you might have seen it coming a mile away. What's giving you security? What's giving you security today? What are you trusting in? What are you setting your life on, thinking that, no, this is it. This is what will bring that satisfaction, that security, that protection that my soul needs. This is where I'm going to find refuge. What are you placing that in? Where is your heart at this moment? If we're putting our security, our stock in security, that's anything other than the Lord, it's just the wrong things. And David brings out riches here. I think this is this is America, right? We trust in our riches. We trust in, at times, money to bail us out when nothing else can. And if we honestly use that, if I have a big enough base buffer, I can go through health problems, losing a house, losing a job, and I can survive a little longer, right? There's something about the human condition where we want to go as far as we can, for as long as we can, for as healthy as we can, and gain as much money as we can, and that's where we find our security. I think I'm preaching to the choir, guys. It's just a matter of our intellect aligned with our affection. Is this what we would look, if we looked at our lives, and we looked at your lives, would it make sense that the way we're living, the decisions we make, that those line up with God being our refuge? Would that make sense? I think there's much to be said about, much more to be said about this, but I want to get to another shift here in verse 8. You guys see that? We saw in verses 1 through 5, or 1 through 3, we see David calling out wickedness. Maybe Doeg, maybe just the image in his mind of wickedness. Then we see verses 4 and 5. He tries to realign priorities, right? Where, all right, you are loving words that devour. You are loving deceit. You are loving being a worker of iniquity. You know what? God will break you down. There will be a day, and it will be sooner than you imagine, and it will be more painful than you ever thought. There will be a day when God and His holy and just righteousness won't look at that. Right, and then we see in verse 6 and 7, he's switching that now, not just from the priorities, for the misaligned priorities of the wicked. Now in verses 6 and 7, he's talking about those who do make God their refuge. He's talking about the goal, the aspirations of all believers. Make God your refuge. And then he gets personal. And this is what we see in Psalms time and time again, where we see David putting his emotions on parchment, and then he always concludes the right way. Verse 8, but I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. I don't think David is trying to say, hey guys, check me out. I don't think David is saying this in like a pompous way. No, I'm the one who's got it right. Look at me. I'm the one who will live in the house of God forever. I don't think there's an attitude, even though that is truthful, there's no attitude behind it. I think it's a reminder to himself. And I think as David is even tempted there, in a cave or on the run, I think he himself is tempted to make something other than God his security. And so this is a reminder. He says, but I am like a green olive tree. Man, why would he bring up green? All right, olive trees are green. Why would you say green? He's now describing, as he did in the first half of this chapter, he described the economy, the environment of the wicked. And when it comes to the righteous in the house of God, he now describes the environment that is. It's green. Green is growth. Growth is life. It's life. In the house of God, seated next to Jesus, there is life. And this is what it actually means to live and breathe. This is what it actually means to have security, is I found God. So he says green because green means growth. There's abundance in the house of God. And he says, I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. I will thank you. You see this? Verse 8 is that introspective glance, that internal conclusion, where he's looking around at the world and then he comes towards himself and he says, okay, so where do I fit in this? He says, I fit in this, right? Aligned under God. This is where I fit in. And then he turns it into a prayer in verse 9. And just as a green olive tree has roots and it sinks those roots deeper and deeper, and then it grows and it blossoms, so verse 9 is blossomed into worship. It's blossomed into prayer. And now he goes, I'm like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust. He's reminding himself, and I think he's affirming the truth that he's trying to live out. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. And then it turns into a prayer. He says, I will thank you forever because you've done it. I will wait for your name, for it is good in the presence of the godly. Oh my goodness. All right, David's on the run. He's in hiding. They literally want to chop his head off. And he says, I will wait for your name. He is being patient, perhaps, with his own life. Because he's given his own life to God. I will wait for your name, for it is good in the presence of the godly. He turns this into a beautiful prayer. So guys, where are you at this morning? Where's your heart? Where are you taking refuge? Where are you looking for that security, that identity, that inner, this is it. I've found it. Where are you resting that desire? And if it's anything other than the Lord, it's just the wrong thing. And when you've discovered that that's possibly where, that you are possibly setting your affections and your aspirations on the wrong thing, guys, just claim that. Forsake it. Confess it. Turn from it. Say, God, I want to make you my rock solid foundation. I want to make you my security. And I'm going to struggle in this life. And I'm going to constantly have to remind myself, as even David, a man after God's own heart, did. I'm going to have to remind myself, all right, you're my security. You're my refuge. You, God. And I want to be like that green olive tree in your house. I want to grow. I want to be nourished by you. I want the needs that I would have to grow to become directly from you, God. And I will trust in your steadfast love. It's just awesome. I am just loving going through the Psalms and seeing just the raw emotion that we find in David and Asaph and some of the others that wrote the Psalms. I'm just absolutely loving this because I see me in there, right? Because I see my struggles, and I see my affections, and I see my heart wandering. And I need these reminders. So I hope we can look at this too, guys. And I hope that verse 8, verse 9, that we say the same thing. I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. I will thank you forever because you've done it. I will wait for your name, for it is good in the presence of the godly. Amen and amen, right? So where are you at this morning? Where are you resting your insecurities? What are you hoping for in the future that will be that thing? You know, that one thing, if I just had this, or if I get to that place, if I just get a little longer. No. David reminds himself in the cave, on the run, now, in the moment of his security. I don't know about you guys, I really struggle with that thinking, and I've shared this with you guys. I really struggle with the thinking of 5 years from now, I think God will love me more. Because I'll be a little better, right? I'll be a little holier, I'll be a little less sinful. 5 years from now, my kids will be a little older, and we won't have the pressure of, where am I going to get money for the bills? We won't have the pressure of, when is this baby going to pop out? I'm not going to have the pressure of life. I think 5 years is just going to be a little easier, right? We have this perspective of the future. Then I'll be in a better spot, and I'll give more to God, and I'll find more security in God then, because life will just be better. And God will love me more. How can He not love me more 10 years from now, right? Well, guys, that might be how it works with your friends or with your wife or your husband at times, just because we are human. But notice that David says, I trust in the steadfast love of God. What kind of love? Steadfast, faithful love of God. We could even go as far as say the immutable, the unchangeable love of God. So guys, 5 years from now, I'm speaking to myself here, the 10 years from now, it really doesn't mean that God's going to love you more. All right? It does not mean that. So if you're thinking that, you're trying to find security in the future, and what the future might hold, that might not be the case. It's the steadfast, the unchangeable love that before time began, that steadfast love of God is resting on us. And it hasn't changed. And so I think we can remind ourselves before we go to bed at night, God, anything I did today, nothing I did today can make you love me less. And nothing that I didn't do today can make you love me less. I think we can go and put ourselves to sleep at night with that truth. So I hope that, guys, we aren't resting in some future hope. David's in the middle of a cave. I mean, it's the here and now. It's the sweat drops coming down from his forehead now. He's being on edge right now because what was that? Did you hear that? Is someone coming? Like in the moment that he's writing this, and in the moment of being more fearful than he could have ever been possibly, he trusts the steadfast love of God. So guys, here, now, this is the time to embrace that steadfast love of God. To give our hearts to Him, which means giving our futures and our past to Him. So let's give our hearts to Him. Father in heaven, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for the power and the beauty of it. Lord, I just ask that we as individuals and we as a church would be those that rest in you, that find our anchor in you, that put our hope in nothing but you. Lord, we understand that you love me right now, today, with all of my warts and all of my metaphorical deformities. You love me now more than you ever have and you ever will. So Lord, we give our hearts to you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen and amen.